Has anyone got any anger that I'd like to resolve? Nobody. Okay. A practice that can be used, or a modality that can be used in a range of different other modalities, even breath work, is primal screaming. Because anger often builds up in the liver and it becomes a source of heat. And it becomes trapped heat, and so oftentimes you get excessive heat in the liver, and so as a result you start getting liver issues, and which often leads to gallbladder issues, which often lead to digestive issues, which often lead to things like irritable bowel syndrome, because irritable bowel syndrome is you've got too much heat in the digestive tract, and so as a result, too much heat moves fast. Okay, and so things will move through your system quickly, and so IBS in some cases can be related to suppressed anger, as an example, and it can be other things as well, it can be nutritional or allergy, inflammation. But when you've got anger and you engage in some form of a modality and I've seen this happen in harpe ceremonies, and harpe is, has anyone here heard of harpe? Harpe is like a South American snuff. It's a tobacco where they basically put it into a pipe and they blow it up your nose. And it produces this enormous amount of pain, like at the back of your sinus. And it's just one of the most intense medicines that you can take. It's not psychedelic by nature, but it has aspects of taking you out of your body and bringing you into your body. But I know for myself personally, I've had many harpe sessions where all of a sudden I've just started screaming with rage, like, Rah! My whole body is just twisted up and all this energy has come out. And I even had one primal screaming session where I was having all these gallbladder issues and I just couldn't fucking shake it. My gallbladder just wasn't working. And I worked with a few people and I said, you've just got a lot of anger in your liver and you just need to get it out. And I started getting really angry that that I couldn't get it out. Irony. And so I did some work. I was working with Krista, and I think we'd done a harpe ceremony, and then I come out of it, and I was just on edge, and I couldn't feel it. And then out of nowhere, I've got this massive big love sack. It's like this giant beanbag, and out of nowhere, I just picked up this thing, and I just fucking started slamming it on the ground, and I just started raging on the fucking love sack. That's ironic, isn't it? And I was picking my arms up and I was just smacking it onto the love sack and I was just screaming and yelling, and she was just sitting there holding space, not crying because she was afraid. She just, I hope it wasn't. But she just had tears of gratitude because I was allowing her to see that, because it takes a lot of vulnerability to show that type of catharsis, that type of healing. And she knows that I'm someone that is. I've got a few walls, especially when it comes to showing the deep stuff. And so she's sitting there holding space. She's got tears rolling down her eyes, and I'm just fucking raging on this love sack. And I would have been raging, I don't know, for easily. I raged so hard I tore something in my shoulder. But by the end of it, my throat was raw. I had no voice left. I was completely lethargic, and my body felt the coolest it had felt in years. And it just enabled me a way to just get it out. And sometimes you just go down the beach and you just, yeah! But my advice is if you do have a build-up of heat in your body, or if you've got, if you have anger that's repeating on a cycle and you just can't get rid of it, go and find yourself somewhere that is nice and quiet and calm, especially near the beach. The beach is so cathartic. Underwater is also good. Just be careful, because if you scream too hard and you breathe in, not good. But just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream until there's nothing left. And it just gives your body, because again, it's just energy. And when you express anger, that's anger leaving the body. When you express sadness, that's sadness leaving the body. When you hold on to anger, you stay angry. When you hold on to sadness, you stay sad. When you don't allow yourself to feel, and express the feeling, it stays with us. And again, healing is fucking messy. And that's why it's so oftentimes hard to heal, because it's hard to either find the space, because sometimes, and this is an important part of the healing process I've learned, because I did an enormous amount of my work solo, because I was too afraid to let people see me heal, and I was too afraid to expose those parts of myself. And one of the things that I realized was missing in my healing process was being held and allowing someone to hold me in the healing process. Because I just thought, well, if I allow someone to hold me, they're gonna leave at some point. So I'll just do all the work on my own, and then if I'm bulletproof, I don't need anybody. But then what I started to realize is, guess what the masculine needs? Feminine. Guess what the feminine needs? Masculine. That's why feminine and masculine, that's why we require at our highest level, in order to truly heal, we need relationship. Do you know why? Because it is in relationship that we have our wounds reflected upon us. And by relationship, sometimes it's a relationship with our kids. Sometimes it's a relationship often with the partner of the opposite sex. And their job isn't necessarily, their job is to, well, it's not a job. Their role is to provide love. But love is the synthesis of complementary opposites working in synchronicity. And sometimes what love looks like is them showing you or reflecting a behavior to you that you fucking hate, that brings up all of your unresolved anger so that you can express it so you can no longer hang on to it anymore. And so for me, learning how to allow the feminine into my environment in order to heal has been a massive part of my journey. I'm still doing that work right now, allowing the feminine in order to feel supported and nurtured without feeling, well, at some point they're just going to leave, betray, something's going to happen and I'm just going to have to go and do the work by myself again. But again, death practice. The greatest form of death practice you'll probably ever do is getting in a relationship. Because here's guess what is guaranteed the moment you get in a relationship? It's going to end. And that's why oftentimes we find it so hard to be vulnerable and fully open up, because on some deeper level, either through experience or just assumption, we know at some point it's going to end. And we know if it ends, it's going to be so painful and so horrific. And an end isn't necessarily a breakup. Sometimes an end is a transition into another realm. It's death. And, so by virtue of getting into a relationship, especially an intimate relationship, you are committing to the greatest amount of pain that you're ever going to experience in your entire life. And you are surrendering, if you surrender to the relationship, you're surrendering to the fact that at some point you are going to be experiencing a soul-destroying pain. Or what feels to be a soul-destroying pain, which is nothing more than a transition of experience, a transition of life. So at some point you can have that loss, and then you can have the perspective of seeing the good in that, the bad in that, and realizing that there is no creation, there is no loss, there is just things that change form. And then you go, oh my God, so that person didn't leave me, they just transitioned, changed. They didn't break up with me, they just transitioned in form. And that energy is still there, it's just being expressed in other ways. But the most important work you'll ever do is in the container of a relationship, because that's when your buttons get pushed. That's when you get taken into your wounds, and it's when you're in your wound that you can do your greatest work. Anyone can do the work when they're not in their wounds. That's the easy work. It's like personal development on a 28-degree day and you're a sailor, and you got dolphins on the starboard. Oh, I'm so fucking personally developed, Anyone can espouse, faith, personal development, faith, biblical scriptures when everything's good. But it's how strong is your faith when things are bad, And that to me is one of the roles of the relationship, is to take us into our wounds, so that those wounds come to the surface so that we can do that work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it. You can't look at a wound to do the work on it. You have to be in the wound in most cases. And that's why a lot of people will avoid it, because it hurts. Healing is messy, healing hurts. Okay, but ultimately what happens on the other side is the integration of those experiences and, ultimate transcendence.